Hey everyone, welcome to On Axis, a podcast from the experts at Audix. I'm your host, Tyler Kern. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode today. Now, today we're taking a look at how conferencing has evolved over the last year or so with Dave Garlett. He is the manager for Key Accounts Consultant Liaison at Audix. Dave, thanks so much for joining me.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Well, Dave, first, tell me a little bit about your role and your experience at Audix. Just give us some background into who you are and what your role is right now.
No problem. I'm a lifetime audio video guy. My whole career has been just one track, which has been audio visual. I've worked at various manufacturers. I've worked in the integration world, in the field, system design work. I've come to the conclusion I'm probably unemployable anywhere else. But this industry is something I definitely love and have a lot of passion for. And I've brought that to Audix to help manage the key accounts and help out with design and implementation of these microphones in the design community out there with the consultants.
Fantastic stuff. Now, Dave, when it comes to conferencing, obviously there's been a massive shift over the last 14, 16 months or so. Tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, what that shift has looked like and how have needs changed when it comes to conferencing over these last 14, 16 months?
That's a really good question. So things have changed. Traditionally before COVID, we would be outfitting conference rooms generally for executive teams or a number of corporate employees communicating to a handful or a single individual out in the field. And today, that use case has almost completely inverted, where nowadays we have a single individual in a conference room managing a team of individuals remotely. And when you look at the cost basis of those rooms, it was really easy to justify these high costs when you had an executive team using that space. But today, with a single person in the room, you have to look at that bill of material. You have to look at that overall cost. And nowadays, more conference rooms are required overall. So that being said, you got to look at the cost of these rooms and you got to get them down to something a little more consumable. And here at Audix, we've come across a few solutions that really help with that. In some cases, magnitudes less cost.
Yeah, you make an excellent point, just what that shift looked like over the last 14, 16 months and how conference rooms are being used differently now. So as you saw what was happening, how did you in particular pivot to adjust to the current market and to the current situation? Once you saw things changing, what changed for you and how did you go about kind of maybe implementing some new ideas or some innovations as a result of how the market changed?
I think in a word, we had to simplify the rooms. Just to really oversimplify it, but instead of an elaborate room with expensive equipment and complexity, control systems, and all these bells and whistles that they used to have, that we got down to just the raw use of the room. I want to be heard. I want to be seen. I want to share my content. And then if you just take those raw elements, you can come up with a fully functional conference room. And again, we're catering to most likely a single individual. So you take those elements, it's for a single individual. The room is generally going to be a lot smaller than we've been working with before. And now you get down to where a handful of very practical microphones that frankly have been around a really long time, and we used to use them quite frequently, are having a resurgence. It's really interesting to see the old proven technology that we used years ago making its way back in very simple systems, a display, a camera, and a microphone, if you will, and a single individual using it.
Isn't that always how it goes? Things, go in cycles. They always come back around. The kids are buying vinyls these days, Dave. So
right.
I suppose that's just kind of how it goes. But so in your conversations with customers, what types of priorities did they have when it came to what the solution would look like? You mentioned that easily accessible, I think, aspect of it. Were there other priorities and other things that they were looking for in particular, or was that maybe the primary one?
That's a good point. The needs of the customer have really not changed. We all know that conferencing was just challenged. The elephant in the room is there's always something about a conference call that kind of goes wrong, or someone's muted, or
right.
There's all this stigma. And, here we are, 18 months of pandemic where we all got a crash course of how to manage video conferencing. Everyone at this point has been on a video conference call and had some experience with that.
Sure.
And I think with that combined group knowledge of being able to navigate these systems, we then realized that all the bells and whistles and kind of extra things that were in these rooms aren't really necessary. We kind of distilled it down to, really more simplified function, less cost, and so on. And I think the end users are all too sensitive to that. Like, this isn't magic anymore. It's an actual proven technology that they probably have some experience with. So I think that the most important thing is that the message that the presenter is giving makes its way across the internet smoothly and articulately, if that's even a word, but with vocal articulate and clear video and all the technical issues being worked out. I think that's just simply the customer's desire is I want my message to make it to the other side as I intended it. And it's probably easier said than done.
Well, and how has maybe the way that you present these solutions changed through the pandemic? I'm guessing you're probably not sitting in as many offices with people face to face as you were before. How has that evolution gone for you? And maybe have you found different new ways to show off what these products are really capable of?
If there's one good thing that came out of this pandemic was that I think, figured out how to show conferencing mics or demonstrate conferencing mics in an objective way. The traditional model was a guy just like me or one of our sales reps would appear at an integrator's office and lay the microphones on the table, and spec sheets are handed out and all this. Yet through all of that, there's no hearing the microphone. We're looking at a piece of paper and we're making an educated guess of what the microphone sounds like. So we at Audix looked at that, and being stuck here in the office or us working remotely, we decided to build up our own conference room where we did a couple special things. We installed essentially one of each of our conferencing offerings. We got really clever with our programming talent and DSP, and we're able to show on the far end of the call what mic we're listening to at a given moment, and we're able to toggle through the various microphones so you can hear them in real world application, and you can hear the good, you can hear the not so good if we're forcing a microphone to do something it's not supposed to, as opposed to switching to a microphone correct for that application. And you're listening to this on the other side. And what we found in just a few minutes of, this is this microphone, sir, and this is this microphone, and this is the next microphone, that person on the far end of the call can kind of connect the dots of the specification and the needed specs for the room he's working on. He can connect that to an actual experience in a similar situation, and with some confidence specify our product just based on he heard it in real world with no frills, no production, not even any EQ. We do it very transparently. And we've done since January about 200 of these demos.
Oh, wow.
it's a lot.
Yeah.
And realizing that in since January, 200 of these, by the way, and you could never do that in person. You could never fly to a city and do 10 demos in a day. It just is impossible. So we're able to reach out to not only the consultants, we're able to reach out to the integrators to give them the confidence of installing this technology. And now the end users are starting to participate. They're, hey, before I buy this thing, can we hear it in a situation? Can we just do a conference call really quick with somebody who has it? And I'm able to select the microphone in question, set up that phone call, and merely just have a friendly conversation and put all of those concerns to ease that smart buyers have. And that's kind of been the latest evolution of this, is the end users participating in our demo room.
Yeah, I really like that. And like you mentioned, spec sheets and things like that are fantastic, but there's really no substitute to just hearing how it works in action and giving people that transparent look at how this is going to perform in a particular setting. And so I think that what you're describing is a fantastic evolution throughout this time.
It certainly has given us a nice connection with the customer on a fully transparent and objective stance. It's really nice.
So we've talked a lot about the different pivots that companies have made during this time and how conferencing has changed and evolved over the last 14 months or so. Do you have any examples you can share of how you've seen companies adjust and maybe what that's looked like for a particular company that you've worked with?
I'm seeing all kinds of stuff. A really good example, and the question being, are we going to be all video conference forever, or are we coming back to the office? And the answer is both is going to happen. And I'll share a story with you about a major company up in Seattle built out a entire corporate headquarters, and this is a major retail company. They built out the entire building. Just were about to move in and decided that we're not doing the office anymore. We're going to be an entirely remote company, and they abandoned the building altogether. Within a heartbeat of them abandoning the building, another major corporation took that building and is outfitting it with conferencing to the hilt. So I think we're going to see a hybrid of this. We're all going to take what we've learned, and all of us have gained video conferencing skill, and I don't think that's going to be lost. I think at some level we're still going to leverage video conferencing, much like I do in our demo room. We're able to show some objectivity to things in our world, but I still believe that post-pandemic, we're still going to get out there. We're still going to put the microphones on the table and hand out spec sheets. But right after that, we're going to get on the phone call and get some objectivity in this application. So we're going to see both. We're going to see doubling down on video conferencing and the technology, and we're going to see people moving away from that, both.
It's going to be really interesting to continue to watch. And one of the things I'm most curious about is just how each company makes that decision for themselves and what that looks like and how that affects particular industries. I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating. Dave, I've loved today's conversation. It's been an absolute blast getting to learn a little bit more about Audix and what you guys do, especially in this world of conferencing and what your role is in all of that. Before we sign off for today, let's tie a bow on this episode. Do you have any final thoughts, any conclusions you'd like to draw, or even just a summary statement you'd like to give our listeners, just to give them something to walk away from this episode with?
Well, I think if there's one thing I could try to teach everybody when you're assessing, is conferencing something we should do? Can we take this particular room and make it into conferencing? And what's funny about this is it's not equipment related at all. The number one thing that I'm finding that seems to be overlooked in all of this conferencing stuff is the acoustics of the room. And I enjoy having that conversation with folks. And I think it's something that I just want to get out there for all those folks designing systems is acoustics is 1/3 of the whole equation, with the equipment being another third and the far end effect being the last part of it. And it's important. I just wanted to definitely get that out there. Consider your acoustics.
Dave Garlett from Audix, thanks so much for joining us here on Access, the podcast from the experts at Audix, and sharing with us some expertise and some insights on what's going on in the world of conferencing. Dave, thank you.
Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And everyone, thank you for tuning into this episode of On Access. We appreciate it very much. We'll be back soon with more episodes of the show. But until then, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts these days. Make sure you're there so you can make sure to stay updated with everything going on from the experts at Audix. And stay tuned. We'll be back soon with those new episodes. But until then, for my guest today, Dave Garlett, I've been your host, Tyler Kern. Thanks for listening.